You know how almost every story, like fairy tales, rom-coms, they always have this idea of the one.
Oh, yeah, totally. That one perfect person.
Exactly. And it's really compelling, right? Gives you hope. But maybe sometimes it also sets us up for a bit of a fall.
That's a really good point.
So that's what we're really digging into today on the deep dive. We're taking a closer look at this whole concept of the one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like a real thing we should be looking for? Or is it more just this cultural story we've all kind of bought into?
Right. Where does it even come from?
Yeah. And we've got some really interesting source material here to explore that. Where the idea originates, what it actually means for relationships.
Okay.
Our goal really is just to offer you a clearer picture, maybe, a different way to think about finding connections that work without all the usual information overload.
Sounds good. And it's a really important thing to unpack, isn't it? Given how much this idea is just everywhere.
It really is.
And our sources, they point way back, like surprisingly ancient origins.
Oh, really? Like how far back?
Think Plato, way back to a symposium.
Plato. Wow.
Yeah. There's this really captivating myth he writes about how humans originally were these like round beings, 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 faces.
Okay, that's different.
Right. Apparently they were pretty powerful. And Zeus, the head god, felt a bit threatened. So he sliced them in half. And the myth says ever since then, these separated halves have just been wandering the earth looking for their other half.
Their missing piece.
Exactly. Their perfect completion.
Mm-hmm.
So philosophically, that basic idea, that longing for wholeness, it's really shaped how we've thought about soulmates for centuries.
So searching for our other half isn't some, modern dating app invention. It's thousands of years old.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's kind of mind-blowing, actually. So that ancient story, that laid the foundation for the whole soulmate idea.
Precisely. It gave us this really powerful story, didn't it? This narrative of a preordained match. A sense of like inherent completeness you can only find with that one specific person. It's super romantic when you put it like that. Destiny.
Deeply romantic. This idea of a destined union.
Okay, so fast forward to, now.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like pop culture just grabbed that idea and turned the volume way up.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Movies, books, love songs.
Everywhere.
They just amplify that idea of an instant, almost magical connection. The moment they meet,
Yeah, the music swells, everything goes into slow motion.
Exactly. Modern storytelling really, really leans into that dramatic, instant recognition, love at first sight.
Right.
These stories often show this seamless, effortless bond, the classic rom-com thing where they just know almost immediately.
And it reinforces this idea that if you find the right person, it all just clicks perfectly, effortlessly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the narrative.
But, real life rarely feels like a perfectly edited movie, does it?
Not usually, no.
There are bumps, disagreements, just messy life stuff. So is this focus on the magic maybe making us miss something important about, making relationships actually work?
That's, I think, a really key question because there's this potential gap, right, between those perfect portrayals and the actual, sometimes gritty work of building something together. That whole one true love story often implies, even subtly, that compatibility is fixed. Like, there's just one person out there who matches you perfectly.
Yeah, like we talked about, your perfect puzzle piece, just waiting.
Exactly that image. But if we bring in, say, psychology and relationship science, they offer a pretty different perspective.
Okay, how so?
Well, instead of searching for a missing piece, it's more about growth. We aren't static beings, right? We change. We evolve.
Sure.
And what we need in a partner, what we value, that can shift too as we go through life.
Oh, okay. So this idea of a fixed one doesn't really account for personal growth or the fact that relationships themselves need to adapt and change.
Exactly. It's a bit rigid. And instead of destiny, the research, you look at work by psychologists like Dr. Eli Finkel or Dr. John Gottman.
Gottman, yeah, I've heard of his work on couples.
Right. Their work shows that successful, lasting relationships, they're built on things like good communication, mutual respect, sharing core values, being able to handle emotions together, especially conflict.
Right. Gottman talks a lot about how couples fight, doesn't he? That being more important than not fighting at all.
Precisely. How you manage conflict is a much better predictor of success than finding someone you never disagree with, which kind of challenges that perfect fit idea, doesn't it?
It really does.
And these skills, communication, respect, emotional regulation, they aren't exclusive to some mythical soulmate. They're qualities you can find and build with someone you connect with.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we lean too heavily into this one narrative, what are the potential downsides, like in our actual dating lives?
Well, this raises some really important points about the impact, yeah. For starters, it can definitely create unrealistic expectations.
How do you mean?
Well, if you're waiting for someone who just gets you instantly, understands every unspoken need, aligns perfectly from day one, you're probably setting yourself up for disappointment.
Because nobody's actually like that.
Right, nobody's perfect. And expecting that level of effortless mind reading, it can lead to unnecessary conflict, feeling let down.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Holding people to this impossible standard that, well, nobody can meet. What else? Any other traps?
Another potential pitfall is something often called the fear of settling.
Ah.
If you're constantly scanning the horizon for this perfect, idealized one, you might actually pass over someone really great, someone wonderful, just because they don't tick every single box on some imaginary checklist.
Ouch.
Yeah. This endless search for perfection can kind of paradoxically lead to more loneliness, that feeling of always wondering if someone better is out there.
So the very search for the one could actually stop you from finding real happiness with a perfectly good partner. Wow. That's a sobering thought.
It is.
But how do you tell the difference between having, healthy standards and falling into that always searching trap fueled by the one idea?
That's a really nuanced question, isn't it? I think often it comes down to focusing on the core stuff.
Like what?
Like fundamental values, compatibility on the big things. Are they kind? Are they respectful? Do you generally see eye to eye on what matters in life?
Okay.
The one narrative often focuses on that initial spark, that feeling, whereas a more maybe grounded approach looks at these deeper, more sustainable qualities.
That makes sense. And what about like effort? Responsibility in the relationship? Does the one idea affect that?
It absolutely can,
Yeah.
because the myth sometimes suggests love should be easy, effortless.
If it's meant to be.
Exactly. If it's right, it'll just work. But we know healthy long-term love takes work. It takes patience, being vulnerable, actually putting in the effort to navigate challenges together. So believing it should always be easy, that can lead people to bail when things inevitably get tough, which they always do at some point.
Right. Giving up too soon because it doesn't feel like the effortless fairy tale. Okay. So if the one from the movies isn't really the goal, what's a better way to think about finding someone?
Well, the alternative perspective that comes through in our sources is shifting focus from finding this mythical perfect match to finding a good one.
A good one. Okay, what does that look like?
It means looking for someone who's, well, emotionally available, someone who can connect, share feelings, someone who shares your core values.
Kindness, respect, like you said.
Exactly. Someone kind, respectful, and importantly, someone who's willing to navigate life's ups and downs with you as a partner.
That sounds, a lot more grounded, more realistic, less about magic, more about actively building something.
Precisely. Love isn't just a passive thing that happens to you. It's an active verb. It involves participation, effort.
And compatibility. It might not be instant.
Right. It's not always immediate fireworks. It can actually be developed, cultivated over time through shared experiences, through working at it together. Initial chemistry might get things started, sure. The spark.
Yeah, the spark. But it's commitment and that shared effort that really keeps the fire going.
It's interesting you say that because our sources mention that too. That when people do find someone who feels like the one, often it's not destiny, but the result of years together.
Exactly. Years of shared history, understanding each other deeply, growing together, that profound connection.
So that feeling isn't necessarily proof of fate. It's maybe proof of successful relationship building.
That's a crucial insight, I think. That incredible feeling of connection might actually be the beautiful outcome of intentional love, of two people choosing each other day after day and doing the work.
Choosing to grow together through it all. Now, we should also touch on the spiritual side, because for some people, the idea of soulmates, maybe karmic connections, feels really important. How does that fit in?
Yeah, it's definitely important to acknowledge that. For many people, believing in soulmates offers real comfort, a sense of deeper meaning.
Like you're meant to find each other. Right. That feeling of a profound, almost unexplainable bond, like you've known them before, or you're connected on some, energetic level. And that feeling can be incredibly powerful when you connect deeply with someone.
That sense of just clicking or really seeing someone.
Exactly. But Our sources also suggest maybe a little caution here. We should be careful that this belief doesn't stop us from engaging with, well, reality.
How so?
Well, while those deep connections can feel almost magical, maybe even fated, it's also possible they're the result of two people just being incredibly well-attuned, sharing perspectives, having that strong foundation of understanding we talked about.
Which, again, isn't necessarily pre-written destiny. It could be great compatibility and communication.
Precisely. It doesn't have to be one or the other, perhaps.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the main takeaway seems to be that fairy tale version of the one. Probably more fiction than fact.
That seems to be a fair summary, yeah. The idea of one single perfect person destined just for you. Likely more of a cultural story we tell than a reality.
But crucially, just because there isn't one perfect, destined person, that doesn't mean deep, lasting love isn't possible.
Absolutely not. It absolutely is possible, just maybe not through destiny alone.
And maybe, instead of pouring all our energy into searching out there for this mythical person, maybe we should shift the focus inward towards something we actually have control over.
Exactly. I think that's a really empowering way to look at it. Perhaps the energy spent searching for the one is better used on becoming the one.
Becoming the one. How do you mean?
Becoming the kind of person who brings great qualities to a relationship. Working on being trustworthy, compassionate, committed, a good communicator.
Be the kind of partner you'd want to find.
Precisely. And when two people who are focused on being good partners come together, well, what they build might not look like a fairy tale.
Right.
But as our sources suggest, it could be something even more valuable, more real. A truly connected partnership built on shared effort and genuine care.
And maybe that kind of love, the kind you build together, is actually more meaningful in the end than just finding something supposedly preordained.
That's certainly a thought worth considering, isn't it? Something maybe even more real.